Order. Elliot Coburn to move the motion.
Thank you, Mrs Fothergill, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I beg to move that this House sheds a light on tackling so-called crash-for-cash insurance fraud, an issue that many of my constituents have brought to my attention in recent weeks and months. And this refers to incidents where individuals deliberately stage or cause road traffic collisions to gain financial profit. These scams often involve making fraudulent insurance claims for injuries and damages that did not actually occur. Often, perpetrators exaggerate injuries or forcefully claim additional passengers were involved in the collision to increase their payouts. And there are three principal types of crash-for-cash scams that I want to talk about: induced accidents, staged accidents, and fabricated accidents. Induced accidents involve fraudsters targeting an innocent motorist to be the at-fault driver, often by suddenly braking in front of their car to cause crashes. Staged accidents involve fraudsters crashing their own vehicles or mimicking the damage of a crash by using tools like sledgehammers. And fabricated accidents involve fraudsters submitting false claims for accidents that never actually occurred. And these scams are constantly evolving, presenting numerous variations beyond these principal types. And crash-for-cash fraudsters often target vulnerable drivers who are in a hurry or unwilling to cause trouble. And in my constituency, I've heard particularly the case of women being targeted for these frauds, for this particular case of fraud. These scams harm all law-abiding motorists, increasing unnecessary work for the emergency services, the NHS, and involve causing innocent victims to lose their no-claims bonuses and face rising premiums. Moreover, the proceeds from these scams may go on to fund other serious organised crime. And such actions are not only deceitful, but are of course already illegal, falling under the offences outlined in the Fraud Act 2006 and the Road Traffic Act 1988. And to fully explain these crimes, I'd like to share a few examples. Now, first is the story of Katrina, a brave woman who experienced this firsthand. And her incident took place last month near Wallington High Street. She was on her way to pick up her daughter from school, and as she waited to turn right, a biker on her right stopped to give way. And as the traffic halted, she cautiously pulled out, halfway, stopping to ensure the left side was clear. However, when she turned ahead to check, another biker had collided with the front of her car. To her dismay, she noticed that the first biker was laughing, and the biker who had hit her immediately began filming the scene. Shaken and confused, she pulled around the corner to exchange details, but encountered a language barrier and evasive behaviour from the biker. Despite the minimal damage to her car, something felt off. Trusting her instincts, she reported the incident to her insurance company and the police, and following police advice, she contacted the Insurance Fraud Bureau. Later that same evening, she witnessed a similar incident happen in Sutton, though at the time she didn't connect the two. A couple of days later, she discovered through a Wallington Facebook group that others had experienced identical incidents that same week within the small area of Carshalton and Wallington, and this confirmed her suspicion that this was not an accident but part of a deliberate scam. And recently, she received a letter from a law firm requesting a settlement. She intends to fight this claim, as it is appalling that people can exploit such fraudulent schemes, potentially affecting her insurance premiums and causing undue stress and injury, and I'm sure we wish her all the best. Her story underscores the importance of vigilance and the need to report suspicious incidents. So-called crash-for-cash scams are not only deceitful, but have real consequences for innocent victims. And this bold woman's decision to share her experience highlights the importance of raising awareness of the issue and the need to do something about it. Some other examples also include a victim, also in Wallington, who was targeted by a moped scammer, who intentionally crashed their vehicle and refused to give details. The police didn't attend, leaving the victim to gather evidence alone. Another incident on London Road in Wallington involved a moped scraping a car and fleeing when a police car approached, and the victim's dash cam only captured the front, making it difficult to prove a scam. A parent in Sutton faced a similar scam during the school run, causing immense stress, especially with young children in the car. There appears to be a trend of parents, particularly mothers, who are targeted during a school run when roads are busier and people are in much more of a rush. For this couple, it all began when a motorbike deliberately collided with her husband's car, resulting in minor damage, but despite the biker admitting fault at the scene, they then filed a fraudulent insurance claim for a substantial amount of money, causing significant frustration to my constituent. and it took persistent efforts, including escalating to the chairman of Admiral, before the case garnered the attention that it deserved. They then got involved in another incident in Wallington, this time also involving a moped. Despite the moped driver refusing to provide details, the police initially failed to respond. It wasn't until later, after posting on the social media site Nextdoor and filing a report online, that they began to take action. And thankfully, CCTV was available at this incident, which shed a light on the situation. However, even the supposed witnesses turned out to be a part of the scam, leading to a barrage of fraudulent insurance calls. It's been a frustrating ordeal, but they've diligently reported all incidents to the authorities and to their insurance company, hoping for a resolution. Now, the Insurance Fraud Bureau, I'm really going to struggle to say that today, a non-for-profit organisation established in 2006, is focusing on preventing and detecting organised fraud like this. And the IFB supports the insurance industry and law enforcement by providing intelligence and assisting in investigations. And it also attempts to raise public awareness about insurance fraud scams, in educating consumers on how to identify and avoid them. And in 2023, the IFB managed over 150 live operations valued at around £90 million, referring 52 cases to the police. They received over 5,000 reports through their cheat line, with 68% resulting in actionable intelligence. Currently, the IFB has around 6,000 active crash-for-cash investigations worth over £70 million, representing around 30% of all their live operations. With the great work of detecting organised fraud, the IFB, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, is one to put research into action. They are a specialised police force established in 2012, funded by the ABI and dedicated to tackling insurance fraud. Hosted by the City of London, the UK's lead force for economic crime, the IFED operates independently whilst closely collaborating with insurance companies. And since its inception, the IFED has investigated fraud valued at £360 million, made over 3,230 arrests, secured more than 2,200 convictions, and resulted in nearly 320 years of prison time. I would gladly give way.
The honourable member for giving way and congratulate him on securing the debate. Just when he's elaborating on what to me, and I'm sure to many others, are outstanding and tremendously high figures that one wouldn't have contemplated, certainly I wouldn't have up until this morning, would he agree with me that the millions of motorists who insure their car year on year are going to suffer not just in this year and next year, but for ongoing years as a result of this? And we really do need to see some firm and decisive action taken to try and ensure that it doesn't occur to the level that he's very clearly elucidating today.
Absolutely. I'm grateful to the honourable member for that intervention, and I think he's absolutely right. And this is hopefully what I'll go on to very shortly in my speech. But this is not a victimless crime. This is not just about a fraudster getting money and no one is worse off. This is real people whose insurance premiums are going up. Often they can't afford their insurance premiums to go up. So absolutely we must be doing something about this, and I thank him for that intervention. Now, the IFED has investigated so-called crash-for-cash fraudsters. In September 2021, the IFED secured convictions against 3 individuals who deliberately caused collisions, resulting in substantial damage and injuries. And the fraudsters filed multiple personal injury claims totaling nearly £50,000. But thanks to CCTV footage and inconsistencies in their accounts, the insurer referred the case to the IFED, leading to custodial sentences ranging from 9 to 20 months. And in February 2022, similar convictions were secured against another 3 individuals who also staged a collision, with claims amounting to £48,000. Now, the insurance industry, I know, runs several public awareness campaigns on crash-for-cash scams, trying to provide drivers with the knowledge and the tools to protect themselves. And recent campaigns have focused on crash-for-cash moped scams, which is, I think, particularly prolific in London at the moment, but I'm sure is the same in other cities and other parts of the United Kingdom as well. And yes, it is vital to raise awareness of this issue so that motorists do have the knowledge to protect themselves. And I just want to repeat some of that advice here before moving on to my conclusion. That is to be cautious, clearly, of cars travelling unusually slow or erratically, and drivers paying excessive attention to the vehicle behind them. maintaining a safe distance so that you can brake in time, following the highway code, and looking ahead for potential hazards, including unusual driving behaviour. Notice if the other driver is too calm and has pre-written their insurance details, or if injuries seem exaggerated. If involved in a suspected crash for cash incident, gather as much information as possible, including written details, photos, dash cam footage, and any nearby CCTV. Report the incident to your insurer, the local police, and the IFB's cheat line, and stay vigilant and informed to protect yourself and others to help combat these scams. Now, an investigation led by the IFB, the City of London Police Force, and the IFED, and several other insurers, has found that 2,250 people in London alone have been the victim of this scam in the past 2 years. And many of the suspected fraudsters are believed to be couriers delivering items such as takeaways. The IFB is currently investigating, as I said, over 6,000 suspected claims, estimated to be worth around £70 million. Now, I do welcome the measures that the government has taken to tackle insurance fraud, such as the Insurance Fraud Task Force that was set up in 2015, comprising members from the insurance industry, the Financial Ombudsman, Citizens Advice, the Treasury, and the MOJ. Now, I know this task force has conducted a review and made several recommendations, and I noticed that they did in their 2017 report highlight so-called crash for cash scams. And more recently, as part of the government's 2023 fraud strategy, I do welcome the significant steps that have been taken to enhance fraud enforcement, including appointing 400 specialist investigators as part of a national fraud squad and creating a new voluntary post of anti-fraud champion, currently held by the excellent Simon Fell MP. However, despite these efforts, obtaining detailed statistics on crash for cash offences remains challenging. Official crime statistics do not separately identify these offences, grouping them instead under insurance-related fraud. And in 2023, there were approximately 13,700 offences recorded in this category in England and Wales, and the IFB estimates that there are annually 69,500 personal injury claims linked to crash for cash scams, costing the insurance industry nearly £400 billion. So I'd like to ask the Minister what his strategy is to tackle this growing issue and what work ministers are doing in conjunction with the industry and police to work on establishing joint strategies for prevention. The fight against crash for cash scams is a collective effort. Law enforcement, government agencies, and indeed the insurance industry themselves. And I hope that the cases that I've highlighted today of my constituents will encourage us all to work together to protect innocent motorists and ensure that those who perpetrate these fraudulent schemes are brought to justice.
The question is that this House has considered the matter of tackling crash for cash insurance fraud. Dame Siobhan McDonough.
Thank you, Dame Yvonne. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Carshalton and Wallington for securing this debate about crash for cash scams. I know that South West London has been a target for organised crime gangs who are looking to scam constituents in both of our patches, so that this is a much needed debate. The more attention that we give this issue, the less likely our constituents are to be the victims of an insurance fraud. And Dame Yvonne, I would like to start by declaring an interest. In retrospect, I understand that I have also been the victim of a crash for cash incident. It was about eight months ago. I was driving through Tooting on a residential road, and out of nowhere, a moped came, overtook me and stopped right in front of me. I wasn't travelling very fast. It was a residential road. I did an emergency stop and managed to avoid hitting the moped. But immediately, the driver of the moped dropped the moped and began to shout and point at me. I pulled over to see that he was okay, absolutely confused, because I know I had done no damage to his car, and to his moped, and I knew that he too wasn't hurt in any way. And I just didn't understand what was going on. He dragged me over, took my details, took photographs of me, my car, which showed no signs of damage, his moped. I gathered myself to take pictures of his moped, to watch him drive off on it, thought no more of it. And then sometime later, I received a letter from a solicitor demanding large amounts of money for the need for him to use a replacement vehicle. It wasn't until a constituent came to my advice surgery and went on to describe exactly the same sort of case that I really understood what was happening. Now, I feel pretty stupid now. And so my constituent, Miss T, told me that she spotted a stationary moped on a residential road, and then when she turned to exit a junction, the moped sped up and lightly tapped her car. He then threw his bike to the floor and started shouting at her. The driver immediately took photographs of Miss T's car, but fled the scene because she could take down any of his details. Lo and behold, she was then contacted by her insurers, who let her know that the driver had made a claim. It was only then that I realised that both my constituent and I were one of the 170,000 people who were targeted every year by organised crime gangs as part of Crash for Cash scams. And since then, I've met with Alliance and LV insurers, not my own, I hasten to add. I have learnt that it is a slick operation that targets women, specifically women who are on the school run, as the Honourable Member has said. The gangs feel that these women are less likely to put up a fight. That is the experience of Ms T, who was driving nearby a school at 10 a.m. when the incident happened. And it is the experience of 4 in 10 people who fall victim to it. There also seems to be hotspots with criminals targeting the outskirts of major cities, and specifically in southwest London, Thornton Heath, which, while part of Croydon, abuts my own constituency. And that the scam is valued at about £392 million a year. It's big business, one that is only getting bigger, because Alliance have reported that the crime has increased by 25%. So what can we do about it? The first is the government's fraud strategy. The Crash for Cash scam is not even mentioned in the document, and if we are serious about our plan to stop fraud at source and pursue those responsible, that would be a sensible first step. Step 2 is the job of the insurance industry. We need insurers to do a thorough job of investigating opportunistic insurance fraud and let constituents know that they might have been a victim. In my own case, when I gathered myself and realised what would happen, I sent my insurers photographs, the short video. I said I thought I had been the victim of a scam. They wrote back to say I would need to go to court, and there was only a 50% chance of my being successful. Finally, we need much more public awareness so victims know how to look out for the scammers. If drivers know the signs of an unfazed driver with pre-written insurance information, then they can let the police know and stop it at source. It might seem like a trivial issue, but it is a business worth £392 million a year, and all of our constituents will be better off if we can stamp it out. It is not a victimless crime. All of us trying to reinsure our cars know how much car insurance premiums are increasing, and we must ensure that the law-abiding drivers of this country are not victims to higher premiums because of opportunistic organised crime.
I'll listen to you, Liz.
Thank you very much, Dean Vaughan. It's lovely to see you in the chair, and I thank the Honourable Member for Carshalton and Wallington for bringing this important debate here today. And I must say that in preparing for this debate, what I also found out that Glasgow is the 6th in the league table of places for cash claims, but it has not been something that my constituents have yet raised with me. So it's certainly something I will be taking up as well. And Alliance have mentioned that there's been an increase, a 60-fold increase in 2023 alone of motorbike cash for crash claims. So it's not something that we should be treating lightly or ignoring. It is indeed something that is increasing, and we should be doing more to deal with. And Aviva have put a figure of £59 million on motor fraud as a result of some of these things. So again, it has an impact on all of us and all of our insurance premiums, which have already gone up considerably. And I think there's a lot more that could be done to highlight this, so that nobody ends up in the situation where they become a victim of this crime. And it was interesting to hear from the honourable members from Conshalton and Wallington and Mitcham and Morden about the impact that this has on people who are victims of it. It sounds like indeed a very frightening experience. The honourable lady for Mitcham and Morden has clearly been through quite a difficult experience and confusing as well, because you don't know what's going on. And for somebody to come at you in the way that they did and behave in the way that you did is very frightening indeed. And the seeming targeting of mums on the school run, again, is quite a frightening experience, particularly if you happen to have children in the car as well, and something happens. That can be quite distressing for those children, and something that they won't easily forget. Again, something that is really quite nasty about this particular type of crime. And as has been said, the car insurance industry research shows that the types of scammers have 3 different types of tactics for this. Staged accidents, where fraudsters essentially crash into each other and claim on their own separate insurance policies. Perhaps less of an impact on the rest of us, but a worrying impact indeed on the fraud side of things. Contrived accidents, where scammers make insurance claims on made-up accidents that have never even taken place. And induced accidents, where the crash for cash person deliberately drives dangerously or badly to force a collision with an innocent motorist, slamming on the brakes without warning, or swerving into them, or pulling out in a junction or roundabout, giving an oncoming car no chance to avoid them. And this has a serious impact on people, and very frightening it is as well. And it really is quite a growing problem. The Insurance Fraud Bureau say that crash for cash scams happen every 4 minutes on UK roads. So in the course of this debate, there will have been multiple of these scams potentially. And they estimate that 30,000 incidents take place every year, costing insurers around £350 million in losses. With the impact on insurance going up of around £44 per person. But it is really quite a worrying aspect that is increasing, because all of us, when we're driving, we expect things to happen in a normal kind of way. You don't expect people to be coming at you in the way that, that the motorbikes or the other cars may do. And it can therefore cause serious injury to people if they are put into that scenario where something happens, particularly if it's in a faster road. There is a real risk of injury and serious harm to people as the impact hits on people's cars and then on the person. So they are taking a serious risk to themselves and to other people in so doing. And I would be grateful from the Minister if he could give more details perhaps on the involvement of organised crime gangs and how perhaps they are organising themselves to do this. There's been lots of talks on other type of frauds about these things being facilitated over social media. Is there such evidence for this type of crime as well? Because it has been an organising, facilitating method for many other types of fraud, both in recruiting people to be part of these scams and in sharing information on them. And it would be useful to know if that indeed was happening. But I would very much encourage people to listen carefully to the advice that the Honourable Member for Conshalton and Wallington gave about what we can do as motorists and indeed as car passengers in these instances. We should be vigilant, we should look around about us, pay attention, as we always should be doing anyway when we're driving. Should something like this happen, look for damage, take photographs, make sure that you're aware of what's going on. Don't feel forced into taking someone's details. Sometimes people try to force you to part with cash there and then as well on the scene to try and avoid any insurance claims. Don't go ahead and do that, because that is indeed part of the scam. Take the details if you can, as many details as possible of the person involved. involved. And it was quite chilling to hear that some of the bystanders, the people watching, can also be part of this scam as well. But try and find somebody that can help and support you in these circumstances. Collect as much evidence as you can, and indeed contact your own insurer and the police, because it is with evidence that we can tackle these crimes, that we can crack down on the people that are perpetrating them and get to the root of the organised crime gangs that are running these operations. All evidence is indeed very useful, and I know that many people, particularly taxi drivers who can also fall victim to this kind of scam because it will take their business off the road, now are obliged to have dash cams both front and rear in their cars as well. So it would be useful to hear how many people have had an increase in dash cams on their car to try and deal with this kind of scenario happening. But very much I would ask the Minister what is happening in terms of public awareness of this. What is the government doing to let people know that this is happening? Because it can't be left just to insurers or just to the police to do this. This needs a coordinated effort to make sure that people are aware of this and that we don't give an open door to crime gangs to perpetrate these awful incidents, which can, as the Honourable Member for Mitcham and Morden said so powerfully, it can be quite frightening as well and long-lasting. So I would ask the Minister very much for more details of what is going to be done about this. Thank you very much.
Alex Norris.
Thanks, Mr Vervagen. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship today. I frequently get the opportunity to take part in debates that the Honourable Gentleman leads in this place because of his very important work on the Petitions Committee. And I think today his leadership of this debate in the interest of his constituents was characteristically thoughtful. And I think particularly the section in which the Honourable Gentleman talks about the advice that he would give in these cases actually was public service contribution there that I think we can't repeat enough because, you know, as the Honourable Gentleman said, this is a constantly evolving crime type and we must evolve our efforts in order to match it. So I congratulate the Honourable Gentleman on securing the debate and the contribution that he made. And it's been set out already by colleagues, you know, how important this is and the impact that these sort of scams have on the victim and the insurance industry more widely. But it also impacts on wider local services, including the NHS and the police, that are stretched at the moment. So this is a serious problem. And the financial impact of this kind of fraud is significant, with, of course, fraudulent claims, as the Honourable Gentleman mentioned, regarding premiums, pushing costs up for ordinary motorists. And again, my honourable friend, the member for Mitcham and Morden, I think it enriches debates when colleagues bring their own personal experiences into the room. And the bit that I kind of doubled underlined was when she talked about how she felt, and the word I think she used was stupid. And that there's nothing stupid about it at all. That is how life feels when you try and engage in good faith about something that may, or in this case, did not happen, with someone who isn't engaging in good faith, and indeed is actually quite a polished and artful scammer. And, you know, she mentions the particular vulnerability, as the Honourable Gentleman did, around mums on the school run. You know, when you're busy, when you're protecting loved ones, when you're doing an important function in your life, to engage with someone who's set out that day to defraud, you know, of course, you do end up feeling daft, because how do you compete with that level of, you know, polish and frankly, organisation? And that's what's happening up and down the country every day. And I think the points that she made around hotspots, I'm going to come back to later, because I think that's a particularly important part about looking of what we can do to look at solutions in the future. But just to make a couple of points on the problem itself, Ms Vervaag, insurance fraud is a blight on our society. Crash for cash is a catch-all term given, for instance, where people deliberately stage or cause a road traffic collision for the purpose of financial gain. And the police describe 3 different types of crash for cash fraud. Staged accidents, when someone makes a claim for an incident that they have deliberately staged with another individual. Ghost accident, when someone makes a claim for an incident that never occurred. Of course, that won't in the same way, I don't think, directly impact on our constituents because they're not being enforced parties to it, but it does impact us through our insurance premiums, and we know that this is a regular and routine happen. And then, as we have spoken quite a bit about today, induced incidents, when someone makes a claim after intentionally causing a collision with an innocent motorist. And we will have seen, honourable colleagues have mentioned their experiences and the experiences of their constituents, but we will have seen those videos online as well. They do look kind of staggering when you see the tape back of people running in front of a car or diving their scooter in front of a car, creating a collision and then throwing themselves to the floor and then getting up and creating a drama and a scene that they know that the other innocent party will not want to be part of, certainly not if they have young children in the car. And there is a sadness, actually, because those who are, they have whatever capabilities in the car, those who are filming those incidents are best protected. But I don't really want to live in a society where I have to go onto the road filming and surveilling what's happening in order to be protected from people trying to scam me. That isn't really a world we want to and we ought to have to live in. I mean, I think in the case, and the Honourable Lady mentions taxi drivers, the member for Glasgow Central mentioned taxi drivers. It's very significant for those individuals if they are off the road, very significant if they have issues regarding their insurance, obviously very significant if they have issues relating to their licences. That is their livelihood. So I can understand why they take the decision to record in the way that they do to protect their businesses. But that's the type of behaviours that those who seek to scam are pushing, well-meaning, law-abiding citizens in every day. And again, we've heard a little bit from colleagues, but I don't think we can play enough into this debate about how it makes people feel. It makes them feel no longer safe either on the roads, no longer safe, frankly, in their communities, and that they go with that feeling and that sense of dread every time they're driving that it may well happen again. And again, that's not how we want people to feel when they're driving their cars. It's an important function. It is, by its kind of nature, a risky one. We don't want people in their heads flinching at the idea that every time someone's moved in front of them or gone round them, that they're going to seek to create a collision. But that is how we know people are feeling after falling victims to one of these crimes across the country. And that is, of course, notwithstanding the fact that inducing a collision, whether it didn't really happen or whether they were successful in clipping or in skimming, that is an exceptionally dangerous thing to do. And also doing something where someone makes a reflexive action, that is a dangerous thing to do and puts others at risk too. So it's an issue around safety, and it's an issue, of course, around insurance premiums and costs too. So in terms of scale, and I hope this is something that the Minister may be able to tell us a little bit more on, but I'm not sure that the official the crime statistics that we would usually rely on quite give us the detail to identify the number of crash for cash offences within insurance-related fraud and perhaps what the trend lines are in that. But we do know that the number of crash for cash cases that the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department are investigating is up 15% since 2021, so there's clearly behaviour change there. The industry themselves have made their own estimates. I too am not going to take the IFB on. I'm going to do the shortened form of that. But the IFB, for example, have estimated around 170,000 car insurance claims between October 2019 and the end of 2020 that were linked to crash for cash fraud schemes. That's significant scale. That is multiple thousands of incidents every single day. And Alliance, as my honourable friend referenced, they've reported that the number of accidents has increased by a quarter in 2023. So we know that this is something happening. We know that those who are organised fraudsters are seeing this as an attractive crime type. So this is very much an important issue of the day. And what we do know is that at a time where people are really struggling, we're not fully out of the financial challenges that people are feeling up and down the country. The impact on premiums is really significant, and inflation is in the news today. But whatever the rights and wrongs of that conversation, insurance prices in the first quarter of this year are up a third on the first quarter of last year. And we would always encourage our constituents to shop around, but we do know that is a bill that people are feeling. It's the nature of that bill. It is a big bill, 3 and sometimes 4-figure sums of money that comes in a go. That's something that really people are feeling the pressure of, and this makes a significant contribution to it. So anyone who thinks that perhaps this is a victimless crime, well, this is very much not, and we all will suffer it. But I wonder if the Minister might say about his conversations with the industry about what they can do to combat fraud and to ensure that these costs aren't piling up on ordinary motorists. And I just want to finish, Ms Vervaag, with just a few different points to the Minister of what I feel that we could be doing in this case. First of all, as my honourable friend says, the government's fraud strategy doesn't include this. Now, I know by the nature of fraud, it is a shape-shifting, ever-changing endeavour by people who seek to profit from doing the wrong thing. So that document, by definition, has to be a living and breathing one. So I wonder if the Minister might say about what can be done to include that, or at least if it's not to be on the face of that strategy, an assurance that this is seen as a priority. The IFB have highlighted the 30 most challenged postal districts in this regard. That is a very good hotspot policing type approach that we can take to this if this is happening in certain communities. You know, I would link it back, as these debates frequently get back to, 10,000 fewer neighbourhood police at the moment. We have made our own commitments in that space, and we'll continue to argue for that. But these are the type of behaviours that individuals do if they think there's never going to be any accountability, just like retail crime say. You know, if you feel you can walk in and just nick from the meat counter because there's no uniformed presence, well, this is one of those as well. So we need those uniformed presence on streets in the areas where we know that these crimes are taking place, so that there is that deterrent and that sense that actually the streets are contested and that those who do the right thing are being backed up by the agencies that we rely on to support them. And then just finally, I wonder if the Minister might be able to say, and I know there's a limit to some of the things he can say in this space, but the reality is, and again, this is the same for retail crime as for VAG, the organised gangs who operate with sophistication in stealing at staggering scale in the retail space, they don't just do retail crime. They do trafficking for sexual exploitation. They do forced labour. They do all sorts, drug dealing, all sorts of organised crime. And breaking one element can help you break all elements. And I wonder, if the Right Honourable Gentleman might talk a little bit about how these fraudsters who operate in this space, what their model is, whether they are standalone fraudsters or whether there is part of greater kind of industrial scale fraud that we see across a variety of different topics. Because as I say, if we can crack them on this, we can crack them on all sorts of things. So I think it's been a really good debate today, and I hope the Minister can address some of these points. Thank you very much.
Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms Fothergill. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I'm delighted to be speaking in this debate that my honourable friend, the member for Carshalton and Wallington, has brought, demonstrating again not only his commitment to his constituents, but the way in which he has used this House quite correctly to bring out a particular example that affects his constituents, but that also affects people across the whole of the United Kingdom. And I'm delighted the Honourable Lady for Glasgow Central highlighted many of those issues in Scotland. The Honourable Lady for Mitcham Morton touched on many of those, and sadly her own personal experience. I think that was sadly a telling lesson for all of us. I'm also very glad that the Honourable Member for Nottingham North, thank you, touched on many of the questions that I know we're all looking at, because this is not correct, as many people have already highlighted, this is not a victimless crime. A few weeks ago, I renewed my own insurance premium, and I can tell you I felt it, and I know we all do, because the reality is we are not just covering our own errors and foibles behind the wheel, but we're also covering those made by others, and in this case, those made by criminals. And that's why I take this incredibly seriously, because fraud is not a victimless crime. It is not simply a crime against the insurance business or against an insurance company. That in itself is not victimless. After all, the insurance company is owned by shareholders, owned by families and individuals across the United Kingdom. But it's not a victimless crime. It's a crime that has a direct implication on the pay packets and on the household economy of families across the United Kingdom. And that's why fraud, I'm afraid, is taken so seriously. It's also, by the way, why it's taken as part of the brief of the Security Minister. You may think it unusual that the Security Minister, and I usually spend my time, as honourable members know, wondering what different foreign agents may be trying to do in the United Kingdom, or indeed what hostile states may be trying to steal off us. Why the connection to fraud? Why the connection even to crash fraud like this? Well, because I'm afraid, as the Honourable Member for Nottingham North correctly said, the connection is very clear. The way in which criminals use fraud to raise cash, to exchange it with agents of hostile states, and effectively the connection between hostile states, between serious and organised crime, between people trafficking and fraud, I'm afraid, is all too clear. Now, that doesn't mean, I should be very clear, that does not mean that every group is connected in all parts. Many groups, sadly, or rather many groups happily are not connected across that, and are simply small ventures by individuals who are trying to exploit something that they may have been told about by somebody else, and therefore they're simply copycat cases. And I don't think we should exaggerate too much. I think we should keep these in perspective. But the truth is there are serious challenges, and there is a serious point here that hundreds of thousands, I think we're now up to 130,000, the Honourable Member put it, of these cases have come to light. And the IFB, the Insurance Fraud Bureau, who does so much to lead on this, has currently around 6,000 active suspected crash for cash claims investigations notified to them by members, with an estimated worth of over £70 million. And crash for cash cases make up about 30% of the IFB's live investigations at the moment. Now, we also recognise that moped-enabled cash for crash fraud is on the rise, and the Honourable Lady for Mitcham and Morden highlighted quite correctly. This is absolutely pernicious and can be extremely dangerous, because not only is the rider putting themselves at risk, but they may be forcing the driver of the car into a dangerous manoeuvre that could put other road users at risk. And then, of course, there could be, perhaps not in this case, but there could be complicity by a solicitor or other person in this scam, which also needs to be called out. And that's why the work that we're doing is not just in the insurance sector, and it's not even just with the police. I'm very grateful the Honourable Member for Nottingham North recognised that we've hired thousands of new police officers over England and Wales over the last year. Many of them are on the streets. Sadly, only London, under Labour government, has failed to meet its target, but the Honourable Member for Carshalton and Wallington and his constituents sadly know all too well about that. The reality, though, is that this isn't just about policing. This is also about the way in which we work with the Solicitors Regulatory Authority and various other organisations that have oversight of these areas. Because unlike traditional scams, the moped scam involves hiding down a side road, snipping out and effectively trying to provoke an accident. Now, that's extremely dangerous. And the Insurance Fraud Bureau ran a targeted awareness campaign on this scam in June last year. And this is something that we've supported because it was highlighting what road users should look out for and what to do if they think they've been a victim of such a scam. The campaign received very widespread national coverage, and I'm very grateful to Sky, the BBC, and Talk TV for picking up on it, because there's still an awful lot that we must do. And that's why I again pay tribute to the Honourable Member for Carshalton and Wallington for setting out many of those areas, and indeed the Honourable Lady from Mitcham and Morden for highlighting how it can happen to anyone in the United Kingdom. Now, the impact of fraud does go beyond the financial losses, and improving the support for victims is an important part of our fraud strategy. The Honourable Member is right. We have not only introduced 400 new officers for the National Fraud Squad, but as part of their efforts and as part of the City of London Police's efforts, we've also managed to bring down fraud as a crime type. It's now down 16% year on year. That's building on 13% last year. So we're demonstrating that the direction of travel is in the right direction. Sadly, fraud, of course, is playing a more important part in many people's lives, as so much of our natural life has now gone online and therefore been opened up to a different area of exploitation. And that's why the work that we're doing across the 43 police forces of England and Wales, supporting more victims through action fraud as part of the fraud strategy, is so important. Now, we're also supporting the national trading standards in their rollout of a multi-agency approach to fraud, bringing together local services and improving support to vulnerable victims. Through the Financial Services and Markets Act 2023, which I know the Honourable Member has beside his bed at night, we legislated to require the payment systems regulator to introduce mandatory reimbursement for APP scams, and they will come into force in October, ensuring more people get their money back. Let me just wrap up by being quite clear about this. This is a matter of huge importance to the government and something that we take extremely seriously. It's something that I know the Honourable Member for Barron-Furness, Simon Fell, has been working on extremely closely, as he's our fraud champion and has been a really important asset to the Home Office in making sure that work comes together. So I'm very grateful for his kind words about our fraud champion. I agree, he's excellent. And on that, I will rest. Thank you.
Elliot Colburn to wind up.
Thank you, Dame Yvonne, and thank you to all honourable and right honourable members for their contributions. I think this has been a fantastic debate, particularly to my constituency neighbour, the member for Mitcham and Morden, for sharing her own story. I think that was very powerful, and I'd like to thank her for that. This is a particularly nasty scam, particularly in the way that it targets women on the school run, but indeed it does also link back to organised crime, just as we saw with the spate of catalytic converter thefts in London a few years ago. That was linked to organised crime. This is as well, and the statistics don't show the whole picture. So just to reiterate some of that advice for our constituents, always be aware. Get a dash cam if you can. Collect evidence, collect photos, collect videos, collect statements, and of course, report it. On that basis, Dame Yvonne, I beg to move.
Thank you. The question is that this House has considered the matter of tackling crash for cash insurance fraud. All those, as many of those for that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 11 a.m.